Why did we pick Tokyo? I think that Professor Dower has spoken about this in great detail. It's the series of traumas and celebrations. Even the beginning, changing the name from Edo to Tokyo, was not just the change of a name, it was the change of a whole social system. The power brokers before 1868 were samurai. It was the daimyo. It was the shogun. And when this changed, the whole city changed. Who owned real estate changed. So although there was not some natural cataclysmic event or no bombing, the city went from a very vital, alive place to almost a waste town as people readjusted. That was the first trauma. Then, as has been spoken about before, the 1923 earthquake and leading up again to World War II. Many of us are familiar with this process by reading just a few pages in our history books, illustrated with a few photographs. What this program will bring you is great granularity, great detail about how individual artists, print artists and designers, looked at the city through this conceit of 100 views, an ancient trope, an ancient way of looking at things in a set grid of 100. And so you see views of the city, you see individual reactions that you would never find in such detail in books or in a short course. So we invite you to look at these. First, we look at the artist Kobayashi Kiyochika in the 1870s and 80s, who's trying to adjust his own mind to this changed city. He's fascinated by the new technology of gaslighting, telegraph, and so forth. He's fascinated by his own ability to begin to depict the night. It becomes Tokyo 24/7 simply because of man-made lighting. Then we see another artist who looks at the city after its destruction by the earthquake and its rebirth under the new emperor, Hirohito. Koizumi Kishio, the artist, is a very enigmatic, ambiguous artist. Why does he show us this view or that view? We don't really know, but he takes us right up to the cusp of World War II. Then we look at other artists who worked in groups and created albums of prints, each one offering a different view of this new city, a celebratory city, a city a bit unease, a city almost frenetically happy because they know there's a war going on in China that might expand. So a nervous city and a celebratory city.
Well, John mentioned a lot of violence, but a lot of it was violence like fire and earthquake and that kind of thing. And I was curious, you mentioned Kobayashi Kiyochika, who was a supporter of the shogun initially. How violent was that first transition?
Well, we talk about the transition and the installation of the young emperor coming from Kyoto to Edo, and Edo becomes Tokyo.
Right.
It was preceded by considerable violence, essentially a civil war that raged on and off for 6 or 7 years. And the reason for that conflict was essentially how Japan would position itself toward the West. And that was the reason for the conflict. So no, it wasn't a peaceful transition. But what we know from our history books, especially those in the West, don't go into much detail about that.